Hey guys, it's Hope with Fit to Fight Republic, and I hope you are all surviving your quarantine. Before we start our practice today, I wanted to talk a little bit about anxiety. And um, there are lots of different, types of anxiety. But for this specific situation that we're all finding ourselves in, I think it's important that we talk about three specific types. Uh, the first type is called impermanence anxiety, which is, when we're forced with something like a pandemic um, or some sort of crisis in our life, we are kind of asked to look at our own mortality and those people that we love and care about. It's not something that we were kind of planning on, it's imposed upon us. And this can create some real stress, right? Um, you may notice that, take the toilet paper for example. People are buying toilet paper in bulk because they don't have any sense of control. There may be some other theories behind this reason, but if you think about it, you can't control what's going on around the environment, so you control what you can. Well, let's not go there. Let's see if we can't bring things back down to a manageable level. One really great way to do that is some of you still have relatively normal schedules. You may be at home, but your job is requiring you to, be online from 8 until 5 or whatever your hours are. But then for some of us, like myself, I don't really have as much structure now. So I'm having to sit down and make a timeline for myself about how I want to spend my morning and what I want to get done. Because I can't control anything out there, it's really important to find things that you can control in here. So ritual and making new rituals. Coming here and connecting with your community is great. There are some other online resources that I will be happy to post in the comments after we finish the live feed. If someone is feeling pretty desperate, I'm not a licensed therapist, of course, but there are some free resources that are available online. There's a crisis text line. There's also some support groups that are ran by licensed therapists. And then we'll move on to the next type of anxiety, which is just normal anxiety. Like you're running late for a meeting, you're stuck in traffic, that sort of thing. There's like a beginning, middle, and end. So your fight and flight are, initiated, and then you get to work, or someone was late, but they show up and they have an explanation. So that kind of comes full circle. Still, some breathing techniques are, really, really good for that. Inhaling and exhaling super slowly for 3 minutes tends to lower your blood pressure. There's also, we've talked about this a little bit, but if you self-massage your hand, if you're quarantined with someone else, and this is another really great partner exercise that you can do. I know you're not supposed to technically touch each other, but if you're living in the same house, anytime self-massage your hands, the back of your neck, your jawline, it releases oxytocin. And oxytocin, some of you may already be aware, it's that feel-good hormone. It's that hormone that mothers have as they're delivering the baby. It's that feeling that you have when you are you think that you're in love with someone, or you are in love with someone. So just simply taking 2 minutes out of your day and starting some self-massage practices can help reduce that cortisol that we're all feeling as anxiety levels increase. And then the third level of anxiety is neurotic or excessive anxiety. And that's where people that have been through trauma or have experienced PTSD may be triggered by some of the things that are going on here. And so that can create some unhealthy thoughts and patterns and things to look for. Again, you can calm yourself down with these touch exercises, with your breathing exercises, but being aware that you're having an issue like that, and then reaching out for help before it becomes too much. Also, keeping active, whether that's being here with us, which we definitely want you to be here, taking a walk outside, walking your dog, I know that that's a really big one for me. If I start to feel that build of anxiety, then I get out and I move my body. Um, so yes, I will place the references, the crisis text, and the few other resources in the comments. And now we're going to work. I decided to do a anxiety release based practice today. So if you guys will just come to a comfortable seat, you can just allow your shoulders to rest down your back. And then we're just going to bring our chin to our chest and just start to take some deep breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth or your nose. You can close your eyes and just listen to the sound of my voice. Allow your shoulders to start to round. And just notice any sensations that come up in your body. When we're forced to be still, you know, if we have like a shoulder issue or knee issue, all of that stuff starts to really become bothersome because our body doesn't have anything else to pay attention to right now, or our mind doesn't have anything else to pay attention to. So just try to sit with that. Sit with the uncomfortableness of life. We'll take another round of breath here. And then we'll just go ahead and come back through center. Bringing your palms together at your heart, and you're just going to start to press your palms together, releasing your shoulders down your back at the same time. So if you notice that your shoulders are starting to creep up to your ears, release them down your back. And then just breathe here, creating some resistance. Again, your palms are pressing against each other. Maybe start to move your head a little bit from side to side, or look over one shoulder and then the other. And then release your hands and just shake them out. And notice as we're sitting here, your shoulders and your hips should be somewhat in alignment. Even if you are, like let's say you have your feet out in front, if you have really tight hips, you can also take a pillow or a blanket or towel and roll it up and place it underneath your hips. So your hips are just a little bit forward. That might make it a little bit more comfortable. As we sit here, you can also take pillows, place them under your knees. So many options. Now we're just going to move through some neck rolls. So just start with your right side. It really doesn't matter which side. Then we're going to come back through center and then over to the other side. And just gently, you may find some places that, especially nowadays, that are super tense, and maybe you want to stop and pause there for a moment. You can even take, if your right ear is towards your right shoulder, you take your left hand and extend it out. Fingertips can be up toward the ceiling or resting on the floor. You can place your right hand on top of your head. We're not pulling, you can just add a little bit more resistance here. And speaking, you know, again, going back to the topic of anxiety, especially in this climate, not only do we have this quarantine stuff to think about, but just normal life stuff. And it can be a lot. And know that you're not alone and that you always have a support group with us. Even if we're not able to be here in person, we're here for you. So just reach out, or reach out to you know, a family member or someone. Coming back to center. Again, just roll through a few neck rolls. And then we'll come over to the left side. Yeah, this time you can take your right hand and extend it either fingertips up or to the floor, and then place your left hand right here. And just breathe. You know, if you're pretty new to this, not breathing, obviously, but if you're pretty new to this, just paying attention to when you're inhaling and exhaling, making sure that you're not holding your breath, that you're consciously breathing through all of this. And not just this class, but life too. Like, ask yourself through the day, am I breathing with purpose? Come back through the center. And then we're just gonna move into our tabletop position. I'm gonna make this way. So first, just check in with your hands, really spreading your fingers wide here. I'm gonna take my knees a little bit wider and keep my toes closer together and tucked. Just a different variation. If that's not comfortable, you can always come back to the wider stance, but you know, try something new. No one can see you, so just go with it. So just pause here for a moment. You want to keep your cervical spine in alignment. Taking a few deep breaths here. And then we're just going to draw or bring our pelvis toward the ceiling, bring our chin up. And then as you inhale or exhale, pulling your belly button to your spine and rounding everything. And here's another good opportunity to close your eyes and just move through some of these cat and cows on your own. You can add in some what I call C curves, where you're pushing your hips and your shoulders in one direction and then the other. You can also make some circular movements, so you're bringing your bum towards your heels and making some little circles in both directions. Just seeing what part of your body needs to really wake up today. What sensations are here right now? And just connecting with that. We don't have to solve all the world's problems or even all of our problems today, but just taking some time out for yourself. Relaxing through your face, through your jaw. If you notice that you have that you're furrowing your brow, see if you can release that. Come back to this neutral place and just breathe here for a moment. Then, if you don't have your toes curled, go ahead and curl your toes. We're gonna push our bum back to our feet, or in that direction. Extend our hands out. Your bum is gonna stay in the air. You can bring your forearms to the floor, or if you have the room, you can bring your forehead all the way to the floor. But our bum is gonna stay extended. This is a great shoulder release here. And also a toe stretch. If that's a little too much on your shoulders, you can take your hands a little wider, or again, you can just stay right here on your forearms. Just be where you're at today. Focus on what your body needs and where it wants to go. It probably wants to leave your house, right? But since we can't do that, we'll just have to learn how to use our breath and lower our blood pressure, connect through our communities other ways, and then just breathe. And slowly just slide onto your bellies. We're going to come into Sphinx pose. So you're going to bring your forearms to the floor. If you notice that your chest starts to collapse here, walk your elbows out just a little bit further so you can open up through your chest. If you notice that you have if you have any back issues and this is too much, then you can definitely come back down. But if you notice a twinge in your back, really press your pelvis to the floor, and that should help release any kind of tension in your low back. So we're engaging our core and pushing our pelvis to the ground. And just because a lot of us have also been staring at our screens, we'll take the passive variation. So just dropping your chin to your chest, allowing your shoulders to round. Notice if you're clenching your bum and see if you can't relax that. Notice if you're starting to clench your jaw or holding on to unnecessary tension here. If your mind starts to wander, that's okay. If you start thinking about, I don't know, all of the stuff, then see if you just can't bring your thoughts back to your breath. And if you can't, that's okay. We're all doing the best that we can. So then we're going to come all the way down to our bellies, bringing our fingertips underneath our shoulders. You want your elbows in alignment or back, kind of like you're getting ready to do a push-up. We're not doing push-ups, by the way. Bring your feet close, pressing the tops of your feet into the mat, and then we're going to come up, pulling your shoulder blades together. Again, pressing the top of your pelvis into the floor. If you notice that your low back, there's some tension there, or just don't come up as high. And breathe for 3. Keep pulling your shoulder blades together. 2. Looking forward. 3. And release. And just go ahead and rest your right cheek on your mat or the floor, releasing your fingertips towards the back of your mat. Maybe you adjust your hips from side to side here. Get back to your breath. Maybe you notice you're holding your breath in that pose, just a signal to breathe. And then bring your fingertips back underneath your shoulder blades. Look forward, pressing the tops of your feet into your mat. We're going to inhale, come up again. This time, if you want to come up a little bit higher, please do so. If not, you can stay in this variation, or you can even come back to the Sphinx variation. Looking forward, opening your chest. But you can also start to move your neck from side to side. Make sure your shoulder blades are back. Make sure you're breathing. For 3, 2, and 1, release. This time resting your left cheek on your mat. Maybe you bend your knees and windshield wiper your legs from side to side. Continuing to focus on where you're holding tension. And just bring your awareness there. So this time, bringing your hands underneath your shoulders, we're just going to come back into that tabletop position. I'm going to face this way. So this time, you're going to turn your fingertips around towards you. Let's see. And maybe your fingers may only go this far, and that's okay. So from here, just start to, maybe you add in a little bit of movement. This right here might be enough. And I have a wonky wrist, so don't follow this side. Yeah, so just find some movement here. Notice any sensations that come up. And then just breathe. Come back to the center. You're going to take your right hand, you're going to flip your palm toward the ceiling. And again, this might be enough. If you need a little bit more, add in just some tiny movements. Again, we're massaging that hand, which is going to release some oxytocin, which is that, feel good chemical. Coming back to center. And then you're just going to do the left hand, or whichever hand you haven't done. So palm faces the ceiling. And on this side, I'm just going to stay right here. I don't need any movement on this side. And just breathe. And we're all in this together. It may not feel like it, but we are. You just have to keep each other, reminding each other that we matter, that we're important, and that we're going to make it through all this. Returning your fingertips back to their regular position. If you'd like to, you can take a few cat and cows here. And then we're going to move into downward facing dog. So just tuck your toes, pushing back towards your heels. And then just gently paddle out one heel and then the other. If you have really tight hips or hamstrings, quadriceps, all of it, your heels may not work all the way to the floor, to the mat, and that's okay. If you need to, if everything feels super tight, just keep a bend in your knee. That's going to take your hips to the ceiling like they're supposed to be. You can still walk out your dog here. No one knows what you're doing at home, so do what feels best in your body. Don't worry about, what mine looks like. Worry about what your body feels like. If you notice your wrist starting to hurt, you can come back down to the tabletop position. You can fan your fingers out to the side, which changes the position of your shoulders, which is going to take a little bit of that stress off of your wrist. And then take another breath, and then just either walk your hands to your feet or your feet to your hands, finding a forward fold. You can always keep a nice bend in your knees here, resting your chest on the tops of your thighs. Maybe you grab your elbows, shake your head yes and no. If you have another variation, maybe your hands behind your calves, or you can interlace your fingers behind your back for a shoulder opener. Just let your shoulders, your head, and your neck be loose. Come back to that. Notice if you are holding tension in your face, in your jaw, and if you are, smile. I know maybe we don't have a ton to smile about, but we're all here together, and for me, that's definitely something to smile about. If that doesn't work for you today, take the tip of your tongue, push it to the roof of your mouth, and that will also help release any tension in your jaw. And breathe. So go ahead and release that bind. And we're going to slowly start to roll up to standing. My head might be cut off, but you don't really need to see that today anyway. Let's see if I can change that. Let's see. Yeah, that's close enough. So just shake your body out a little bit. You can close your eyes. I think we did this on Thursday or whatever. I don't know. All the days are running together. Friday, that was it. Closing your eyes, just releasing any tension here. And then come back to a neutral stance. We're going to take our feet a little bit wider than our hips distant, pointing your toes in towards each other, and then just slightly find a little bit of a bend in your knee here. Shoulders are rolled down your back. And breathe here. Come back to standing, toes go back in front of you. We're going to inhale our fingertips up to the ceiling. Then you're going to take your left wrist by your right hand, and we're going to stretch over to the right. Coming back to center. Right wrist, left hand over to the left. And then come back to center, release. This time we're going to take our feet, toes out, wider than your hips. And we're just going to find a little bit of a squat here. These are all grounding poses. Really keeping solid feet in the floor, or the floor, the mat. Bringing your shoulders away from your ears. And breathe. Maybe you pick one foot up or one heel, maybe both, maybe just the other, and then release for 3, 2, and 1. Come back to standing. This time we're going to take our hands to our hips, We're going to come to a halfway fold. You want to be looking forward or ahead of you. You don't have to lock out your knees. You can keep a little bit of a micro bend here. Your weight is mostly in your heels. We're going to inhale back to a standing position. Again, exhale to that halfway point. Now you can stay here, or you can start to work your fingers towards the floor, or a block, or a couch, or they don't even have to be there. So you can stay here. It might be easier to take your feet a little bit wider. Wherever you're at, just breathe here. Walk your hands over to your right side. Try not to bend any more into your knees. If you have a slight bend, that's fine. But we're gonna stay with a straight leg forward fold here on our right side. Even if your hands are lifted, or if they're on a couch, you should feel a stretch up the back of your thigh here. Walking your hands back through the center and then over to the other side. You may notice that one side is a little bit easier than the other, and that's perfectly normal. And then coming back to center, you may have to walk your feet in just a tiny bit, toes still out to the corners of your mat or the room, and just see if you can find a little squat or a little bend here. So bend as much as you can to get your fingers toward the floor or to some sort of prop, pillow, something. You're sitting back in your heels, so you should be able to lift up your toes if you had to. You can stay here with your fingers grounded, or you can extend your arms out in front. For 3, 2, and 1, and then slowly rise up to standing. Go ahead and heel toe your feet together. And then just rock to your toes and then through your heels a few times. We're going to inhale, taking our fingers behind us. You want to roll your shoulders down your back. Again, you don't really need to see my face in order to be able to do this. Roll your shoulders down your back. You don't have to lock out your elbows at all. And if this doesn't work for you, you can grab a towel, or you can simply go as far as you can. But just looking forward, you may notice that your ribs want to start to go out. Don't let them do that. Pull your belly button back into your spine. Bring everything back into alignment. Breathe here for a moment. And then slowly we're going to start to take a forward fold. So coming back into that forward fold or a forward fold like we did before, really stretching through your shoulders. Releasing your hands towards the mat. You're going to step back for a high plank. This is the only one, I promise. The original burpee, I think is what the yogis, or I've heard it called. So you shift forward on your toes. You come into a low plank. Come into an up dog. And then come back to downward facing dog. This time we're going to bring our feet together in this downward facing dog. Inhaling up to your toes. And exhaling, releasing your heels towards the floor. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhaling. And then exhaling. And last time, inhale. And exhale. And then come back down to your tabletop position. We're going to take our knees wide. Breathing here for a moment. So then you're going to extend your right arm out like a T. You're going to exhale and you're going to thread the needle coming onto your shoulder. You can look underneath your left shoulder if you have the mobility. You can also take your left leg and extend that leg out to the side. Continuing to breathe with intention. Pay attention if you're holding tension in your face. Like, how am I not supposed to hold tension in my face? I know, right? It's smashed into the floor. And then slowly start to unwind. You're going to bring that left leg back if you have it. Unwinding your right arm, bringing it back down to your mat. Taking a little bit of a reset here. Maybe you move through a cat and cow. And then we'll move on to the other side. So extending that left arm out this time, threading the needle through. Once you're here, taking a breath or so, you can take your right leg and extend it out to the side, maybe looking underneath your right armpit if that feels like something you want to explore today. And maybe not. Maybe never. And that's okay. Slowly unwinding, coming back through your tabletop position. Again, moving through a gentle cat and cow. We'll come back to a seated position. This time we'll extend our legs out in front. You can always keep your feet a little bit wider than your hips if you like to. You can keep a nice bend in your knees. If you are super tight, sit on a pillow. You can also take a pillow underneath your knees so it doesn't seem as extreme. Or if you have a tendency to lock out your knees, this is a great position. So today we're going to take just a passive forward fold. So just start by bringing your hands towards your ankles or your shins and just looking in between your feet. We're not working to get our forehead to the floor, to our legs or anything like that. Taking a few breaths here. And then just allow your maybe you loosen your forearms start to fall to the floor. Maybe your chin drops to your chest. And again, finding that rounding in your spine. And one of the most effective reasons this stuff works, like this movement, mobility, flexibility stuff in breath, is basically a movement meditation, right? And if we can learn to be in the situation, because who wants to, like, honestly, like, once you have a practice and you know it works and you know that it relieves stress, of course you want to do it. But like, this stuff isn't easy. None of it's easy. The martial arts stuff, none of it. But we show up and we do it. But the benefit is that when we learn to breathe in places that we don't necessarily want to be, like holding a forward fold, and we're able to calm our thoughts, or at least not react to them, then that same practice that we're learning to do in here, you can do out in the world. So when these same uncomfortable sensations arise for you, you're in a meeting, you're in traffic, you're stuck in your house with your pets and your family, and and you don't know what's happening. If you can get back to this, pay attention to the thoughts, pay attention to what's going on, and breathe with it instead of like resisting it, you can find some sense of calm. It takes a lot of time and it takes practice, but it's definitely worth it. So go ahead and come back up to a seated position. You're going to bring the soles of your feet to the floor, and then just gently start to windshield wiper your legs from side to side. You can add in a twist here if you like. And then coming down to your mat, you're just going to cross your left ankle over your right leg. And you may notice that this is a pretty good stretch for your hip here. You can also bring the right foot off the floor and interlace your fingers behind your right thigh. If you need a little bit more, take your elbow and add just a little bit of tension. You can also add in some small movements here. Or you can just sit with a stillness. Notice where your body holds tension. Notice where your thoughts go. You don't have to change any of it, just notice it. And then gently release, bringing your knees into your chest. You can even cross your ankles, grabbing the outside parts of your foot. There's a running joke with some of my FightFlex people that you can hold hands with your feet for any of you. And then release your feet, crossing your right ankle over your left leg this time. Pausing here for just a moment. Notice the sensations. This side is definitely more tight for me. And then you can decide if you want to lift your left leg off the ground, interlacing your fingers behind your thigh. And then maybe you find some movement here. Maybe you stay with stillness. Again, you can take your right elbow and create some tension on this right side. Notice what comes up on this side. And then gently release. Again, bringing your knees into your chest. If you cross your ankles, try to cross the opposite ankle on top this time. You can grab the outside parts of your feet. And then release the soles of your feet to the floor. We'll do a couple of rolling bridges together, and then we'll hold a bridge before we start to wrap things up. So you want your feet about hips distance apart. As you inhale your hips to the ceiling, your fingertips also go to the ceiling. They go back behind you, touch the floor as your hip points reach towards the ceiling. And then exhale, releasing everything back down to the mat. And you really want to do this with control. So engaging your core. You're not just like catapulting everything up there at once. Inhale, take your time, slowly moving your hip points toward the ceiling. Your fingers come back behind you. Exhale, bring everything out back down to the mat. 2 more times. Inhale. And then exhale. This time, as you inhale, bringing your fingertips up to the ceiling, your hips come up to their highest point. We're going to stay here for a moment. So you can bring your hands underneath you. You can also interlace your fingers, kind of walking your shoulders underneath your body. Just make sure that your neck feels comfortable, and you want to keep your gaze toward the ceiling for this. And hold this for 3, 2, and 1. And slowly as you can, lower 1 vertebrae at a time. Nice. Take your feet wide, allowing your knees to meet in the center. And then gently bring the soles of your feet together, allowing your knees to butterfly towards the floor. And we'll wrap up today with just take one of your hands, place it on your heart, and one on your diaphragm or your belly. We're not going to do anything like super fancy here, but if you find yourself being super anxious, see if you can't find a place. If you can find a place to lay down, great. If not, then just standing up, placing a hand on your heart, hand on your belly, and just take some really deep breaths. So you can even count your inhales and exhales if you want to, trying to make them either the same length or your exhale longer. But just notice how maybe you feel your heartbeat underneath your hand. Notice the natural rise and fall of your belly. Try to find some gratitude in the fact that your body system is working well enough to allow you to join us for this practice. And know that you're not alone, that we're all in this together. So when you're ready, you can stay there if you like, or you can just work your way back up to a seated position. Thank you guys for joining me today. Again, I'm going to leave some of these sites under the comments. Thursday should be hips and hamstrings and legs. Again, if you have any other questions or concerns, or you want more of something, less of something, then I'm all ears. I'm here to guide you, and I really look forward to seeing you guys all soon, either here or in the real world. I hope you have an awesome day, and again, I know I've said it like 3, I don't know, probably more than that because I'm crazy. We're all in this together, and we're gonna get through this. Thank you to Ryan and Amber and all of you guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.